Today on the Travel Magazine, we will visit the big island of Hawaii. But first, we'll take you to the Swiss mountain town of Interlaken. Interlaken means between two lakes. Hi, I'm Jake de Boer and welcome to this edition of the Travel Magazine. Interlaken, Switzerland is situated between two lakes, surrounded by mountains and meadows. All this makes Interlaken a place where you can swim, cycle and hike in summer and ski some of the most spectacular mountains in winter.
It's really beautiful. I really like it a lot. I'm glad I came here. This is my first time, but I'm really enjoying it quite a bit.
This here is the old part of the town. It's called Untersen, and this is the old church, which was built in the 11th century, so it's a very old one. And this part is even older than the country of Switzerland, which was founded in 1291. This is the River Aar, which divides Untersen and Interlaken, which is actually the point where we come from the community of Untersen to Interlaken, which has some very old bridges, also on the way, wooden constructions.
Carriages like this, are they available to tourists and how does that work?
Yes, they are, and they're extremely popular. They usually have their stand place at the Interlaken West railway station. A lot of people come here, go to Interlaken West railway station and say, can we have a carriage for half an hour? Then we have drivers, like our driver today, which takes people around town and explains them about what there is to see and all the attractions. There's one interesting thing that we can see now from here.
Yes.
Up there in the rocks, we can see the Hardemanli.
Yes.
It's sort of the so-called ghost of Interlaken.
Right.
We say that he looks over Interlaken and makes sure nothing happens.
The landmark Victoria Jungfrau Hotel sits prominently in the center of Interlaken.
It's named after the Queen Victoria, the lady who dominated their century, and it started as two buildings, as two hotels. Here on this side is the Victoria section, and on this side is the Jungfrau section, hotels which were independent of each other till 1895. So now we are 120 years old. The habits and what guests like to do in their vacations are changing. We have been talking a minute ago about the good old times when guests stayed here for a month's time or so, just doing nothing and doing some excursions. Now everyone is so much conscious about its health, its well-being, and so we felt that this is something we should do, health, fitness and beauty complex, a health club. We have the beauty part, which is a beauty center, but it's not only the external beauty. We are offering a cuisine masseur, a low-calorie food, which is extremely appealing, attractive, but healthy, in our restaurant.
The open-air museum at Bellenberg gives you an authentic impression of rural everyday life in Switzerland during the past centuries.
On the old Swiss farms there was always the big house for the farmers, and next to it was a little house where the old parents lived. So they didn't want to disturb the young family, that's why they moved out, but they didn't want to leave the land, so that was the best solution they could find.
So is it basically a bedroom?
It's one bedroom and one living room, that's all. They didn't have bathrooms by that time. There were lots of houses disappearing in Switzerland because they were constructing roads, they had to go away, and they were just torn down and never rebuilt. So there was a lot of culture was getting lost. So the idea was to make a place, a big park-like area, where we can have all the different houses from Switzerland in one place. On a farm there were always poor people working for a living, and they didn't want them to live exactly on the place where the owners of the farm lived, so that's why they built the downer house. The downer, that were the old servants, and they had to live somewhere apart, and it's part of the farm, of course.
So it simply served the purpose of a servant's quarter. Were there any animals in there as well?
They slept with the animals, yeah, they had them in the house,
Yes.
like geese or sheep, goats, because they used to have their own milk, their own eggs, and they didn't want to be too dependent from the farmers.
What would they have smelled like, do you think?
Not very good, I think.
I can well imagine. The Bellenberg Museum preserves the tradition of wood carving and many other crafts that have helped give Switzerland its rich history.
This is lindenwood, like most of the wood carvings here in Brienz. We use it because it's plentiful, it's very even grained, and it's relatively soft. A lot of the figures, the smaller figures, are carved in the hand. We hold them in the hand, don't have them rounded or anything. This is what we call a relief carving for a mechanic, and I'm just finishing the script on it now.
That was more luck than wisdom. Super.
See? That's how you do it.
A visit to Interlaken would not be complete without a trip of the Jungfrau, where the mountain railway runs across alpine meadows to vantage points with spectacular views of the valleys below. The mountains surrounding Interlaken have become a favorite for paragliders, offering a breathtaking view of the region.
Big cloud moving nicely with them.
when you're doing those, it's like being on a fast roller coaster. It takes your breath away when you swing down. It's like you're spinning.
Were you scared?
No.
Will you do it again?
Oh yeah.
It's like you're at an amusement park and you're just on 10 billion rides all at the same time, the scariest ones.
Coming up on the Travel Magazine, the Big Island of Hawaii. The Big Island of Hawaii is big in size and scope, grand in its vistas, and generous with its charms. And it is likely that on the Big Island the first word spoken was aloha.
Hang loose, guys. You having fun still?
The Ritz-Carlton was opened in 1990, December of 1990. And basically we've tried to place an oasis on a very diverse island, the Big Island of Hawaii. We have 2 championship golf courses that wrap around both hotels, and actually we host the Senior Skins each year, which is a very popular event, one of the most widely televised golf events in the country. In addition, we have probably a total of more than 18 tennis courts within the resort. We have grass, clay, we have really world-class tennis and golf facility. We have a very special coastline here, and the Kahala Coast Resort Association is an umbrella organization that works for the betterment of all of the resorts involved, which would be the Mauna Kea, the Maunalani Resort, and the Waikoloa Resort area. And just working together to further development in a very positive way relative to Hawaii, and being in harmony with the landscape and the nature here in Hawaii, what it has to offer. They also work to market the resorts and to bring people to the destination. Each resort seems to offer something very unique. The Mauna Kea, their beach is lovely, beautiful, one of the world's finest. Here I mentioned the championship golf, the wonderful tennis facilities. Waikoloa does have something special in its Swim with the Dolphins program. And it's an opportunity for their guests, very lucky guests, to swim with the dolphins in a man-made pool area and actually experience the creatures up close.
Now, you know what? We're going to introduce ourselves to the dolphins, okay? How do you do that? You wave to somebody, right? Let's wave to Lono. See what he does. Hey, look at that. He's waving right back at you. What we're trying to do here is teach people about these animals in a different way than a typical oceanarium or show environment. So all of our programs are hands-on, gives the people a chance to learn about them through contact. So it's really a great opportunity for people to realize that they're extremely, like you said, intelligent animals. They're very beautiful, very affectionate, and they are worth keeping on this planet. And we try to, while we're having a good time with everybody, teach them about things that they can do to help make the ocean a safer place for dolphins to live. And maybe over a long period of time, we can help to preserve their species in general. See little black dots? That's where he had whiskers for about 3 days. That's where he had hair again. Now, what's this called up here? Brittany, remember? Hey, who's making that sound? You guys had a big lunch and now you're making that noise?
No, the dog.
Oh, okay. Everybody take your finger, and I want you to tap him real lightly right here. Now listen to him. Hey, that's the way. These dolphins come from the Gulf of Mexico on the west coast of Florida. This is one of about 32 different species of dolphin, and the reason for choosing Atlantic bottlenose dolphins is because they are very comfortable in shallow bays and inlets, and they're typically found in that type of environment. So to provide them with a lagoon like we have here is really an ideal setting for them. And we can continue to train them indefinitely, so even though they've been with us for 6 years, we're, to this date, we're teaching them new things. Initially, the first thing you want to do with this type of program is gain the trust of the animals, and let them know that our touch is really something positive, and that took, maybe several months. Once you have that relationship established, the training comes relatively easy, and you just have to be patient, take your time, and take small steps to what you're trying to accomplish. The feedback that we get from our guests is just overwhelmingly positive. I think it's mostly an emotional thing which they walk away from, and realizing that, hey, these animals are really something special, and I'm going to do my part now to do what I can to help save them. And we've had some unbelievable response. They have a greater compassion for their plight in the wild, and that's the biggest response that we've had.
Nice. You feel pretty heavy? Oh, he's only about 400 pounds. Yeah.
I'm keeping him up.
Yeah. Come on.
He's waiting for you. Oh boy, very nice. You got it, Barry, yeah.
Okay, put your right hand on your forehead.
On the count of 3, we'll toss it away. Ready? 1. All right, let's give over the great big cheer right here. They go.
We will be back with the Travel Magazine just after this, so stay with us.
And give a big cheer. Let's hear it.
It seems like many of our guests choose to rent a vehicle because the diversity of the island that it offers, it's nice to jump in the car and be able to go right there. So up in Waimea, in that town, they have the Parker Ranch, which is one of the largest privately owned ranches in the world, as well as the Kohala Na'alapa. And I've been horseback riding up there just recently, and it's breathtaking. It's almost like a storybook with the rolling hills. You get a real country flair in the town of Waimea.
This is one of the most productive cattle raising areas in the world. There's a higher percentage of live births per acre in Kohala than any place else. Because the first cattle that arrived here that came on sailing vessels from Mexico as a gift to Kamehameha from Captain Vancouver were in pretty poor condition. They were allowed to roam free so that they could multiply and reproduce. There was a rule that no one could touch or handle them. They were the property of the king upon penalty of death. So this cattle became a real nuisance. They went anywhere they wanted through the countryside and trampled crops, knocked down the grass huts, and were in general considered a nuisance to the Hawaiian people, until much later on, around the 1830s, when the cattle began to be domesticated and used, and then they became something that was important to the economy. Right. And for many Hawaiians, becoming a cowboy was very appealing to their free spirit, and some of the best cowboys grew up and developed in Hawaii with our unique conditions here. On old ranches like Kahua, a lot of the cowboys are Hawaiian, and a lot of the families that live up here in the ranch have been here for generations. It's not what a lot of people expect Hawaii to look like. They're picturing the sand beaches and palm trees and thick vegetation, but this is another side of Hawaii. The Kohala Mountains were very densely populated back in ancient times, and there's a lot of ruins all over the ranch. As we go along on a ride, we will pass a lot of terraced areas that were agricultural plots, old house foundations, rocky basements, and it's really interesting to try to visualize what it must have been like here in the past.
volcanoes are probably one of the most outstanding experiences on the Big Island, Kilauea being the most volcano in the world. To hover over the vent is an experience that one must have while they're here on the Big Island. You actually feel the heat from the vent, and then you're able to follow the tubes, the flowing lava. As it travels underground, you have glimpses of it through pieces of landmass that has melted away. You have tubes running at several miles an hour underneath ground and finally ending up building more landmass there at the ocean. It is really, you get to see the island being created still today.
We're on the summit of Kilauea, and underneath us, if you see at the crater, 2 miles deep, this is where the magma reservoir is located. And from here, what happens is it goes along the east rift. About 11 miles from here, there's a vent which we call Pu'o'o, and this is where the eruption is taking place right now for about 11 years. When lava comes out from the volcano, it's about over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and it tends to move further towards the ocean. It tends to cool probably about 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. When the hot lava reaches the water, it tends to make an explosion there because of the hot and cold. So it's really hot at that point. It tends to boil at that area. When it explodes, it makes the lava in fragments of sand. If you've traveled down along the coast, you might have seen the black sand. This is how the black sands were formed with the explosion of the lava from the entering of the ocean. We have a lot of steam in the park here. See, rock under us is still hot. When we have water, especially the rain that we've been having up here in Hawaii volcanoes, when it drips down and reaches the hot rock, it forms this steam and it comes out from the ground, especially from the large cracks. So we do ask visitors, please do not take any rocks home, because Pele, who is the fire goddess, whatever comes out from her, especially the lava, that's part of her body from her, and you're taking some part of her body away from her. So I do believe in this type of legend that if someone takes a rock, someone will get sick.
That's it for this edition of the Travel Magazine. Aloha!